Welcome back to AfricaCom 2018, where we are shaping Africa's digital future. I'm now joined by Nicholas Williams, head of the ICT division at the African Development Bank. Welcome. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Now, you are, I suppose, keenly positioned in your role to help shape the policy that will drive connectivity and digital transformation in this country. What are some of those challenges that we have to overcome?
Yeah, well, we're not short of work. There's many policy challenges that we face. I think principally what we as the African Development Bank is currently stressing is the need to look less at the supply side issues that affect the market. I mean, AfricaCom is a great example that there's actually a healthy supply side. What we need are policies in place that encourage the demand side. Make people, for example, in the rural areas care about being connected, want to be connected, create the demand pool for connectivity for the networks themselves. So some of the examples that we're looking at currently are digital identification. If I have a digital identification, off the back of that, I think people can start providing me with services, particularly digital financial services. If I have a bank account linked to a digital ID, then I can transact online. I can start getting market information online. I can start getting government subsidies online. And so there's a real, gain for me as a rural farmer to be connected now, in the sense that there isn't necessarily that gain at the moment. And so we need to, drag the supply out, and that's going to be driven by demand. One of the other areas, big areas that we're stressing are data regulation. We see a lot of data now being created in Africa. We see investments in data centers. What we don't see is the regulatory environment to support large-scale investment in data centers and data infrastructure. Not in a secure way, if you like. We don't know what the rules will be going forward, and that's got to have an effect on people's investment decisions. So what we'd like to do is to see governments working together to create regional data regulation that also simplifies the environment for investors. They know what they're investing in, and it also reassures consumers about how their data is going to be handled, and again that should help drive some of the demand side elements. So they're just two examples of the areas, but the emphasis we see going forward should be on the demand side, on the policy side.
And is something being done about it? Are we seeing enough, not only from the administration, but I suppose organizations that play in this space to try and, because South Africa is connected. A lot of people have mobile phones. They would hopefully get access to data at some point. I think it's more a case of not knowing what they can do and what they can demand with the technology they have access to.
Yeah, we can't second guess what the market will start providing and what consumers will be demanding. It's far too vibrant for that. What we need to make sure is that the environment in which people are transacting is well known, it's understood, they know one another's rights, they know how their data is going to be treated, or as a supplier, they know how they have to treat data. And so that's kind of the foundational piece on which is then built all the services. And I would just stress, it's AfricaCom, it's for all of Africa. I think South Africa is particularly healthy sort of environment for data. I think we see other countries struggling to get their head around it. I think there's also issues around scale. Countries recognize that they need to have cross-border transfers of data. It's not going to be possible to hold all their data necessarily in countries, but they don't know what the rules are. So we need to move on at a regional level to develop those rules of the game, so that investors know what they are, and so consumers know what protections they have. And I think that is a big gap in the market at the moment. But it's a gap that governments particularly are trying to address. We just need them to move in lockstep together rather than have a fragmented policy environment across the continent.
Because if you address those challenges, there's a great potential for the African continent in the digital space, isn't there?
There is. There is. What we have here in Africa, and it is commented upon often, is a large youth population who not only can be great demanders of services, but they can be great creators. And so if we've got an advantage over any other part of the world, it's that we do have this strong youth element in Africa. What we need to do is ensure that they're properly skilled, they have proper access to opportunities, and the African Development Bank, for example, has its own Jobs for Youth in Africa program, where we have a component dealing with just coding for employment, helping the youth to get access to coding skills, with a goal to create 234,000 coders in Africa by 2031. But we're also doing projects and project financing to support innovation hubs that allow them to go beyond just being coders to being entrepreneurs, to give them access to finance, to give them access to connectivity, to give them access to academia, so they can build up their concepts into meaningful businesses. So it's job and wealth creation in Africa. And I think there are massive opportunities for Africa on that level. And I think people like ourselves at the bank who can mobilize finance to help develop these innovation hubs, we're in a good position to assist. And I think that there's a strong desire from the youth to get involved in ICT.
Well, certainly AfricaCom 2018 is a place to ramp up those conversations. Thank you very much, Nicholas. Thank you very much.
Thanks.